Have you ever watched someone you love slowly begin to change, but brushed it off as just aging? Maybe they started eating less. Maybe they napped more during the day. Maybe their eyes lingered a little longer on the family photos. You told yourself they were just tired, or maybe bored. But what if their body was trying to say something far deeper? Something final? In the last month of life, the body begins to speak in quiet, almost poetic ways. Not through pain or panic, but through stillness, silence, and small shifts that most of us miss. We're so used to looking for medical emergencies that we overlook emotional and biological goodbyes. And in doing so, we lose the chance to meet our loved ones right where they are, in one of the most sacred moments of their life. Take my neighbor, George. He was 82 when the changes began. A proud man, always first to the table, always cracking a joke. But one day, he stopped finishing his meals. He'd place his fork down halfway through and just sit there, quietly watching his daughter eat. Not staring, just observing, with a kind of soft smile that said more than words ever could. At first, his daughter thought he was just tired, but it wasn't fatigue. It was presence. George had begun saying goodbye in the only way he knew how, by being fully, tenderly there. You see, the final month isn't always filled with drama. It's not all tubes, monitors, and whispered prayers in hospital rooms. Sometimes, it's a man sitting at the kitchen table, watching the steam rise from his coffee like it's the last time. Sometimes, it's a grandmother who suddenly wants to sit by the window a little longer. These aren't random behaviors. They're part of a deeply human process. A winding down that's as graceful as it is heartbreaking. But here's the hard part. Most families miss it. We miss it because we're distracted, because we're busy, because we don't know what to look for. We say, "Mom's been sleeping a lot lately," or "Dad's just not that hungry these days," and we move on. But what if we paused? What if we asked, "Are you tired, or are you ready?" What if we sat next to them in silence, held their hand, and said nothing, but let them know we see them? Because in that final month, the body speaks clearly, even if the voice is gone. Less appetite, more sleep, fewer words, longer stares. These are not symptoms to fix. They're invitations to be present. So tonight, if you notice your loved one staring out the window a little longer than usual, don't rush them. Sit beside them. Let the silence be sacred. Because their body may be whispering something that their lips are too tired to say. And if we're listening, truly listening, we might just hear what most families never do until it's too late. In the final month, something deeply human begins to happen. A person starts reaching out, not always with words, but with presence, with glances, with small, repeated questions that don't make sense until it's too late. They're trying to say something. They're inviting you into something important. But more often than not, families are too distracted, too overwhelmed, too afraid to notice the quiet plea beneath the surface. Let me tell you about Grace, a 79-year-old mother who had lived alone since her husband passed. Her daughter, Megan, visited every evening after work. One night, as Megan stood up to leave, Grace said, "Do you remember that red sweater you used to wear when you were 10? Megan smiled. "Of course, Mom." Grace nodded and said, "It was so bright. You lit up the room in that." Megan gave her a quick hug and left, assuming it was just a nostalgic moment. But the next night, Grace asked again. And the night after that. It wasn't just memory. It was reaching. It was her way of holding on to her daughter through a memory that made her feel close, safe, and ready to let go. But Megan didn't realize that, until the night her mother was gone, and that question never came again. Here's the truth most people don't want to face. People who are dying often know long before their families do. And when they sense the end, they rarely say, "I'm dying." Instead, they say things like, "Do you remember when we used to sit by the lake? Are you still using that blue car? Whatever happened to your old friend Sarah?" They ask questions that aren't really questions. They're memory bridges, emotional anchors. They're searching for meaning, connection, peace. And yet, many of us answer in a rush. "Oh yeah, I remember that," or "She moved away, Mom." And then we glance back at our phone, or the clock, or our to-do list. We miss the moment. We miss them. So what can you do instead? Pause. When they ask those questions, don't just respond. Lean in. Ask them back. What do you remember about that day? Why did that memory come up now? Tell me more. I'd love to hear it again. Let them speak, even if you've heard the story 100 times, because when someone is approaching the end, they don't want to be entertained or distracted. They want to be witnessed. They want their life to mean something to someone. That someone is you. If your father tells the same story every day, ask him to tell it again. This time while you record it. If your mother talks about a necklace from decades ago, ask her where she kept it and why it mattered. Let them open the door. Just don't walk past it. Because when their time is gone, it's not the money or the things you'll miss. It's the question they asked twice that you didn't take time to answer. There's something deeply sacred about goodbye, but in the final month of life, most people never get to say it the way they need to, not because they don't want to, but because no one creates the space for it to happen. We're waiting for the right time, the perfect moment, or a clear sign. But death doesn't always give you that. It comes quietly, often in the middle of a normal Tuesday afternoon, while you're replying to an email or folding laundry. And the chance for goodbye slips away. Let me tell you about Irene. She was 85, lived in a nursing home, and had grown weaker by the week. Her hands shook a little more each day, and her voice was growing thin. But she was always alert, especially when her grandchildren visited. One day, she asked the nurse if she could be dressed in her favorite blue cardigan, the one she used to wear every Easter. She put on a little perfume, brushed her hair, and asked if someone could find the photo album from 1976, the one with all the beach pictures. She had something in mind. She was preparing. Her family visited that weekend, but they were in a rush. One son had a flight the next day. A granddaughter had soccer practice. They stayed for 20 minutes, took a few photos, said, "We'll visit again soon," and left. Irene passed away that night. And here's the part that breaks your heart. Next to her bed was the photo album, a box of handwritten letters she never gave out, and a single note that said, "Just wanted to say thank you for everything." She had planned her farewell, but no one stayed long enough to receive it. This happens more often than you'd think. We imagine goodbyes will be dramatic, like in the movies, but in reality, they're quiet preparations. A favorite meal requested, a certain song played more than usual, a need to sit by the window just one more time. These aren't coincidences. They're signals, invitations. But families miss them because we're moving too fast. We say, "Let's plan something nice next week," or "We'll all get together when everyone's free." But that week doesn't always come. So here's what you can do. Make time, even just an afternoon, and let it be theirs. Play the old songs, look through old photos, sit on the porch with them in silence. Bring the blanket they used to love, Ask them what they want to eat, not what's healthy, but what makes them smile. And above all, stay. Stay a little longer, even when it's uncomfortable, because they may not have the strength to say, "I'm saying goodbye," but they'll say it with their eyes, their gestures, their sudden need to hold your hand for just one more minute. You don't need a ceremony. You just need to show up, fully, gently, and with your heart wide open. Because when they're gone, what you'll miss most is the goodbye you never gave. In those final weeks, something strange happens between silence and breath. Old hurts come to the surface, not always in words, but in glances, in pauses, in the way someone reaches for your hand and hesitates. It's as if the person knows their time is running out, and they want peace, but they don't quite know how to ask for it. And too often, the family misses this window, because they're afraid to bring up the past, because they think it's too late to make things right, or worse, because they believe some wounds are better left alone. But the truth is, the final month of life is often the only moment left to heal what decades could not. If you wait until tomorrow, that chance might be gone forever. I remember a man named Charles. He was 87 and had been estranged from his oldest son, David, for nearly 20 years. The reasons were complex, full of pride, hurt, and silence. They hadn't spoken since the funeral of Charles's wife, but in the last month of his life, Charles started asking his daughter little things. "Do you know where David lives now? Is he okay? Does he still play guitar?" He never said, "I want to see him." He never said, "Tell him I'm sorry." But those questions, they were doorways. One night, he asked if the nurse could leave the door cracked open, just in case someone drops by. He passed before David arrived, and afterward, when his daughter told David everything Charles had asked, the regret was unbearable, because deep down, both of them had wanted one final conversation, but neither knew how to start. This happens more than we realize. The dying don't always speak in direct apologies or grand confessions. They might ask about an old story. They might bring up a name you haven't heard in years. They might give you something that seems random, a letter, a photo, a trinket, and whisper, "Give this to your brother." What they're really saying is, "Help me let go of what I've carried too long." If someone you love is in their final days and starts mentioning the past, or people they haven't seen in years, pay attention. That might be their way of asking for reconciliation, even if they never say the word out loud. You don't need to force a big emotional scene, but you can open the door. Say, "Is there anything you want to say to someone before you go? Would it help if I reached out for you? Is there something on your heart that's still heavy?" Sometimes just asking is enough. Sometimes they'll say no. And then, a day later, whisper, "Actually, yes." Don't assume they've made peace with everything just because they've gone quiet. The silence may be grief, or fear, or hope. And if you don't ask, you might never know. When someone you love is slipping away, everything inside you wants to hold on. You tell yourself, "Not yet, not like this." And so you say yes to the oxygen mask, the IV drip, the emergency call, the hospital bed in the living room. You say yes because you're afraid that saying no means giving up. But here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Sometimes, love means letting go. In the final month, many families fall into a heartbreaking trap. They think doing everything possible is the same as doing what's best. But everything often comes at a price: suffering, fear, and a sterile death full of machines instead of memories. Let me tell you about Linda and her mother, Eleanor. When Eleanor's breathing became shallow and her appetite vanished, Linda panicked. She called 911. At the hospital, the doctors asked if they should resuscitate her if her heart stopped. Linda, terrified, said yes. She didn't understand what that meant. So when Eleanor's heart gave out at 2 a.m., she didn't pass quietly in her sleep. She was shocked with defibrillators. Her ribs cracked. A breathing tube was forced down her throat. She died minutes later, hooked to machines, her eyes wide, her body bruised. And Linda never forgave herself. No one had told her that CPR in the elderly rarely works, and when it does, it often leads to more suffering. No one had explained the difference between saving a life and prolonging a death. She only knew she couldn't bear to say goodbye. But that goodbye came anyway, just not the way she wanted. So let's talk about what most people avoid. If your loved one is nearing the end and a doctor asks you about interventions, you have every right to pause, to ask, what will this really do for them? Will it bring comfort or just more pain? Is this for them or is this for me? Because many people, if asked while they're still able, will tell you clearly, I don't want to be kept alive like that. They'll say, let me go peacefully. But the conversation never happens, so families default to emergency mode. They check the yes box on resuscitation forms. They bring in feeding tubes, catheter lines, sedatives, restraints, anything to delay the inevitable. And in doing so, they turn a natural moment of departure into a medical crisis. You don't need to let your loved one die in pain to prove you fought for them. You can fight for peace. You can protect their dignity. You can sit beside them, hold their hand, and whisper, you can rest now. We'll be okay. That is also love. So if you're facing this decision, or if you still have time, have the conversation. Ask them what they want at the end. Let their wishes guide you. Because when the moment comes, you'll want to remember their face, not the machines. And you'll want to know you gave them not just more time, but a gentle, human ending. After someone passes, the silence in the room is deafening. Their voice is gone. Their scent fades from the pillow. The phone no longer rings at the usual hour. And that's when it hits you. Not all at once, but in waves. You forgot to ask them about their childhood. You never recorded their voice. You never wrote down the recipe for their soup, the one that tasted like Sunday afternoons. In the final month, families are often so focused on caregiving, logistics, and holding it together emotionally that they forget the simplest, most human things, capturing a laugh, asking the story behind an old photo, writing down the names in a family album. And then, when the chair is empty, those things are gone. I once met a woman named Paula, whose mother had been her best friend. They talked every day. But in her mother's final weeks, Paula was overwhelmed, driving back and forth from work, managing medications, arranging appointments. After her mom passed, Paula opened her voicemail, looking for comfort. And there it was, an 11-second message her mother had left 2 weeks earlier. Hey, sweetie, just calling to say I love you. Drink your water. You always forget. I'll talk to you tomorrow. But there was no tomorrow. Paula now plays that message every birthday, every Mother's Day, every time she misses her. It's just 11 seconds. But it's everything. We don't think to preserve these moments until they're all we have. In that final month, your loved one might still be able to share their favorite stories. They might still be able to sing that lullaby they used to hum when you were sick. They might still remember the name of the dog they had in 1952, or the moment they fell in love. But if you don't ask, those memories die with them. And that's the part most families regret. Not the medical decisions, not even the arguments. It's the absence of the ordinary, the empty spot where their handwriting should be, the birthday card you forgot to keep, the Sunday where you were too tired to visit. So what can you do now? Pick up your phone. Ask them, what was your childhood like? Hit record. Let them talk. Take a picture of their hands holding your baby's hands. Write down the story behind that strange little necklace they always wore. Save a voicemail, a note, a favorite phrase. And don't worry about making it perfect. Just capture something. Anything. Because grief isn't just about missing someone. It's about missing everything you didn't think to remember. The way they said your name. The way they stirred their coffee. The sound of their footsteps in the hallway. That's what you'll long for when they're gone. That's what you'll ache to hear just one more time. And that's why this month, if it really is their final one, is the most precious gift you'll ever hold. Don't let it slip by unnoticed. If someone you love is entering their final month, you probably won't know it until it's over. That's the hard truth. Death rarely circles a date on the calendar. It just shows up. And when it does, it's not the moment itself that hurts most. It's everything you didn't do while you still had the time. So maybe this isn't their last month. Maybe you have another year, or 5. But what if it is? What if this is the month you'll look back on and say, that's when I could have made it easier, warmer, more meaningful? Because here's what we've learned. In that last stretch of life, people don't ask for miracles. They ask to be seen, heard, held. They reach out in quiet ways, through a soft question, a pause in conversation, a glance that lingers just a little longer than usual. And we have a choice. We can rush through, miss the signs, and live with the ache of, I didn't know. Or we can pause, sit down, listen, ask the question, answer the look, make space for goodbye, even if it doesn't feel like goodbye yet. Because if you treat every month like it might be the last, something beautiful happens. You live without regret. You love without holding back. And when the time really comes, you'll know. You were fully there, and they knew it. Thanks so much for being here with us today. We'd really love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us one thing you took away from this video and how you're planning to use it in your life. Your thoughts truly matter to us, and reading your comments gives us the energy to keep going. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who might need it.